So hello and welcome to Dommy Tries This. I hope you brought your cuppa. Today's coffee mug is a Mother of Dragons coffee mug. Once again, Dragon Con didn't have an official coffee mug for me to purchase from the Dragon Con store, but we went up to America's Mart and I managed to find, that's where all the vendors are for Dragon Con, and that I managed to find one of a couple of coffee mugs. This is the first one that you'll see. You'll see the next one Wednesday or Friday. Anyway, the lady that does these, I don't have the card in front of me, but apparently these are hand etched and all of that stuff. My husband picked up a little shot glass that had the etching on it. She does her own artwork apparently. And so yeah, there's that. That's one of the mugs that we got from Dragon Con. And in our mug is the Stash Spiced Dragon Red Chai Tea. Seemed appropriate for our first video after Dragon Con. And it is, since it's a stash tea, and stash teas tend to be on the milder side, it is double bagged. And this is a tea that I normally put in with a chocolate tea to get that spiced hot Mexican hot chocolate type feeling. But today I am doing it by itself. As I recall, I do like the tea by itself, but it's been a long time since I've had it on its own. So let's give her a sip and go ahead and get started. Okay, so it needs a little more time to steep, but you do get the spices in there. This one has cinnamon, rooibos, ginger root, and clove. And it does have that warmth and spiciness from the ginger root and the clove. And the cinnamon has a little extra sweeter type of kick. It's a really good tea by itself. I probably should have it more by itself. But I do like mixing it with chocolate. So anyway, so this is our, this is my first filming. Today is my first filming. I've actually done another video, but today is our first filming back from Con. We had a really good time at Con. We ended up not going the entire 4 to 5 days. We got home early on Sunday night and then chose to stay home on Monday. We only had one other panel that that my husband and my son really would have been interested in, and probably more my husband than my son. And we were just tired, and it was just one of those low-key years. It was kind of unusual in that way. It was a low-key year. Some nice things, however. The con honored Stan Lee, so to speak. They give out these ribbons that we call to put your lanyards on, to put your passes on. And they put this one, it says a true believer, Stan Lee, and gives him the years. And I ended up taking mine off of this because of the light colors. I was afraid it would get dirty. I'm going to keep this and keep it safe and clean because it's just really nice. It says Excelsior on it as well. I think it's a really neat that they did that for him for this year. And I think they did a couple of Years of Marvel type panorama type photographs. You'd have to check Dragon Con on Facebook to see some of the pictures. There were some really good costumes this year. I also picked up another green dragon. This one is actually sleeping this year. He's really cute. He is currently unnamed, so I'm gonna have to think of a name. I honestly haven't thought of a name for my queen over here either, so anyway, just had to show off my con swag. So I'll probably mention it, but first bit of news is that I am working with my lighting a little bit. Hopefully this is a little better. You will have to let me know. I am noticing that we do get the occasional kind of glaring issue that we were experiencing in most of the videos in the past. However, I do think I look a little less yellow than a couple of videos I've done recently. So hopefully that works. Let me know down in the comments if the lighting is working out better for you. I am also filming at night, so that might be helping as well. So anyway, so today we are going to be doing a foundation hunt type thing. I have been picking up and trying foundations here and there. I've got a new BB cream I'm actually trying. I've never tried BB cream before. Well, I think I tried one and I didn't like it. But I've got a BB cream I'm playing around with right now, but I've managed to collect and try out enough foundations to finally do another foundation video. Now, honestly, I'm not really looking for any more foundations, but I do not mind trying them out. So let's go ahead and get started with these. And the first one was probably my biggest disappointment, and that's the Pacifica A Light Clean Foundation. This is the bottle. I think the bottle is beautiful. The color actually works really well for me. As you can see, it comes with a pump. And there it is. She's a little more on the orangey side, but she actually seems to work fairly well for my face. Now, I was really excited about this foundation when I heard about it because there's some other things from Pacifica I really like. But as you know, when Tarte had their issue, I started watching how other brands were doing their foundations, whether or not they had shades for darker skin tones, whether or not they had at least a somewhat expansive 30 to 35 shades, somewhere in there kind of range. And at that time, Pacifica's only foundations had like 5, 7, something like that. And I was really kind of upset about it because there were some other things from Pacifica I really liked, including some skincare things. And in a case of a company like that, if it was primarily skincare, I would have just gone ahead and just continued to buy the skincare and left the cosmetics alone. If it was primarily cosmetics, I wouldn't have bought anything. However, Pacifica seems to be a mix of the two. So when they came out with this, it really helped with my dilemma of whether or not to buy from them. However, there were some other issues. So let's get into this. This is a little stiff to blend out. It's on the lighter to medium size of full. Buildable. I don't feel it on my face. I do feel it a little bit to the touch, almost like I've put a moisturizer on my face. So it's not horrible to the touch when you touch your skin like that, because it's kind of like a moisturizer, but you do feel it there. It dries reasonably quickly to a tacky stage, but stays tacky for quite a bit. A damp sponge helps with areas where it shows texture. It only oxidizes a little, so you need to get really close to a shade match to start off with. It does stand up to my weepy eyes, though it can be difficult to blend out the edges if necessary once it's set. Feels and looks heavier when mixed with my Vichy, and that feeling gets stronger the longer it's on. I also think my skin might have been getting sensitive to it the more I wore it. Just a general sense of irritation when I removed it that got stronger each time. And it seems powder fussy. The powders that I like to use tend to make it look really dry. Overall, it's an okay foundation, just not for me. Someone looking for full coverage might like it. I did try working with it again and mixing it with some of my other favorite foundations, since I'd really rather not waste it, and got mixed results. It didn't work so well with my Dream Satin, which we'll get into a little bit later, but it worked really well with my e.l.f. It still felt heavy, but the finish was nice. I have to be careful though, as the light can make other foundations patchier or cakey, especially if more than one pump is used. I'm going to attempt to continue to use this, but I am concerned about the sensitivity I felt. I do not think, I always consider my skin sensitive when I'm buying skincare or anything of that. I always try to get stuff for sensitive skin. My skin is not really sensitive though. It does react to some things, but I've actually had very few problems with reactions. If you have sensitive skin, I would not recommend this foundation, just because even if you can wear it through the day, that irritation later in the day is kind of concerning. And you don't want to have to fight to take your stuff off and deal with, extra redness or anything. So it's an okay foundation. I'm glad that Pacifica came out with a foundation that had more than 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 shades. I don't know what the deepest shade is, but I do think that this one is more conclusive than they've been in the past. And if you don't have sensitive skin, I can see it being usable. I am still going to try to mix it with the e.l.f. or the Dream Satin and see if I can try to use it up. It is, as you can see, it can match me, probably matches me more in the summer, towards the summer, but it does work for me in terms of that. It's good for lightening foundations that are too dark. I have a new foundation that I will discuss that I have used, but I haven't worked with this in it yet. So, and that's the Juvia's Place, which we will get to in a little bit as well. So anyway, overall, it's an okay foundation. It's not anything that I would rave about, not anything I would repurchase. I will try to use it up. If my skin still starts to feel really sensitive, it will probably end up getting tossed. However, it's not worth the effort to make it work if it's going to give me issues. This is the Maybelline Dream Satin Liquid. I think this is the original Dream Satin. They now have a Dream Satin Urban or something that came out. I've considered trying it, but some of the reviews haven't been all that. So it's a small little jar, and it's 1 fluid ounce. And the pump, one of the nice things about the pump on this one is that it doesn't pump out a lot at once, so it's easier for me to use it for a mixer, although today I'm wearing it by itself. This one is actually practically a perfect shade match for me, and there it is. You can see it's just a touch darker and not as yellow as the other, as the Pacifica. This is a nice packaging and pump. Does dispense less than other pumps, but I think that helps to get close to the smallest amount you need. When you're buying foundations, you don't want to waste by having too much down. I initially felt it on my face, but that feeling settled after a while. But the tackiness of it remained for hours. It never really fully dried down, at least initially. I've been having less issue with that, and so I'm thinking that maybe at that time it might have been one of the powders I was using. Kind of like an overlay heavy moisturizer. So it also felt kind of like a moisturizer on my skin. Might be a bit powder fussy, had some other discomfort, but my skin was going through some issues at that time, and I've had no problems with it since. Whereas with the Light, I have tried it since I started it, and I've still had a few issues with it. So my skin was going through some issues that could have been the real problem at the time, and the discomfort with it did not increase over time. Lighter end of medium coverage, nice finish even with a matte powder. Shows some texture between my brows that is not easily sponged down. It will lift up if I have put a damp sponge over there to try to reduce the amount of texture it's showing. This is not a big deal for me. Glasses. Anyway, the powder seemed to help, even though the texture on my chin was more emphasized. I'm really amazed at the shade match. It was even better with my Vichy. It actually does beautifully with my Vichy, and that's what's made me a fan of it. It dries down faster with a slightly lighter but buildable coverage and a beautiful finish. My only problem with this is the limited shade range, and if Maybelline didn't have the Fit Me, and I think they've come out with something else since then that also has a really wide foundation range, I would not be purchasing it. This has become one of my favorite foundations, and I really enjoy it. I mean, I've had it less than a year, and I'm already halfway through. This, I either use it by itself or almost as a mixer with almost everything. It's a really beautiful, I think it gives me a gorgeous finish. It, like I said, it matches me practically perfectly once it dries down. It has more of a peachier undertone, but it's not orange. Whereas this one has more of a, I guess, golden yellow undertone. But yeah, it really does seem to work well with my skin. And as I've used it, I've gotten to like it more and more. I will be repurchasing this. I really do enjoy this. For anyone who's trying to use me for a shade match, this is in Creamy Natural. I will say, so I do need to give another thing that I should have said earlier. I am combo skin. I have been combo oily in the past, but since menopause, my skin has dried out a little bit. I still get oily in my T right in here, mostly on my nose, but the rest of my face is dried out more. So I'm less combo oily and just combo. A little oil here, a little dryness on my cheeks, and everything else is normal. So this foundation works really well on that kind of skin. It does work really well with the Fit Me powder, so I can powder down my nose, and it seems to stay fairly well powdered. Foundation that I highly recommend if you have combination skin. I haven't found dry patches, so it might actually work for all skin types. The only one I can't vouch for really too much is probably oily, because if stuff comes off my nose, I expect it, from allergies and stuff. So, but I've not noticed any breaking up or any other issues with it. So this is a really, really good foundation that I highly recommend and that I will be repurchasing. So next I have the CoverGirl Plus Olay Simply Ageless. I really struggled to get this one to work. It's a good shade match. It has more of a neutral undertone than the Dream. Honestly, I think my undertone is closer to this one, whereas my color is closer to this one. So, but the coverage is nice, the color match is good, but it showed a lot of texture when used alone. It did better with my Vichy Mineral 89 mixed in, but still not great. The final nail in the coffin was I started breaking out. I rarely get breakouts, and usually they're in reaction to something, not always, but usually. Other than some melia around my lip, that seems to be something I get frequently regardless. And when I do, they don't usually last more than about 3 days. This one was a little more excessive. It lasted a while. I had to really fight it to get it to go away. So, yeah, I won't be using this. I'm probably going to just throw this out. It's not useful to... I can't send foundations. I don't think I can send foundations to, well, you can't open the pump, really. Well, so I might be able to send it to Project Beauty Share, but yeah, I won't be using this one, and I don't recommend it at this point. I do know that there are a lot of people who have said that this foundation works for them. It just doesn't work for me, mostly because of the reaction. My skin is finally looking really good, and I want to keep it that way. The next one, I haven't worn all that much. I've worn it a couple of times. It is the YSL All Hours Foundation, Long Wear Natural Matte. This is a very, very loose formula. I've only used this a couple of times. And a watery formula. If I can get something out of here. And I prefer a much thicker consistency to my foundations. It's along the lines of the Pacifica a little bit in terms of the color. So the color match works. It's not as, you can see that the Maybelline is getting darker. It's kind of funny that that's ended up being the best match for my skin. The very loose formula, I prefer something a bit thicker. It's the light end of medium coverage, but buildable to light end of full, but may have to be careful not to get it too cakey. It has an odd scent. Yeah, it's perfumed. It smells almost like an ocean breeze or something. It's a bit cakey on my nose, creases between my brows. Don't feel it on my face, but it takes a long time to set and reduce its tackiness. A long time. Long time. Even with powder. Long time. Finish is nice, but needed a lot of powder, which dried it out some. So this is one that I'd have to be willing to sit and wait for it to dry out if I don't want to look like I'm looking desertish, and so I'd have to powder it and then just let it do its thing, basically, and I'd have to wait a while for it to do that. It's okay. It's not one I would purchase, particularly considering the prices of the YSL, and I mean, we're looking at $35 to $60 foundations now, which is why I would never pick up some of the new ones that have come out. I mean, the $60 foundation. You're replacing these at least once a year. No, not for 60 bucks. And YSL tends to be very expensive, so it's not one I would buy, but it's not a horrible foundation. You just need to have patience with it getting set and dried down and all of that stuff. That's all. Didn't have any reactions. I don't think I've managed to try this with my Vichy yet, so can't give you anything on that, but that scent, I just hit my nose. But that scent is just really kind of interesting. So the next one is the e.l.f. Flawless Finish Foundation. Apparently this is an older foundation that they've just added new shades to, and I have to say that it really surprised me. This is like a $6 foundation, I think. Might be $7. e.l.f.'s prices have been going up lately. It has a somewhat perfumey scent. Nice pump. Good color match on this one. Tends toward the more golden, like some of these other ones. I'm going up on my swatches, but you can see it. It's on the lighter end for me, so it's a good, say, late fall, winter foundation in terms of color. It's on the light end of medium coverage. It does build. It dries down quickly. I don't feel it on my face. It has a nice finish, though some of my texture does show between my brows. Again, this is not a big deal when you consider I wear glasses. I'm not sure anyone even notices the texture between my brows. It's probably just me. I don't feel it to the touch. It mixes well with other foundation, even lends some of its finish to other foundations when it's mixed. It works well with my Vichy. This isn't, like I said, it really, really surprised me. I've tried playing around with a number of e.l.f. products, and they tend to be very hit or miss for me. And I really, really was not expecting the foundation to really be a hit. I figured it was just going to be one of those things I was going to try for that GRWM I did with all one brand when I used the e.l.f. So I just picked it up mostly for that and figured I was going to end up hating it, and I don't hate it. I actually like it. It's another one that I use to mix. A lot of it has to do, again, with lending some of the warm cast of it to more neutral foundations. It works really well for me for that. And I like it. I recommend it. I didn't have any issues anywhere on my face except between my brows. Not powder fussy. It works with everything, with the Vichy and everything that I've tried with it. It's a surprisingly versatile foundation. And yeah, I had no breakouts, no issues at all. So if you're looking for an inexpensive foundation that works really well, has a decent coverage, would be the one. Next, I have the Jouer Essentials High Coverage Cream Foundation. I got the sample card. It came with basically, I think 6 samples, one from each of their families. They have pale, light, medium, tan, dark, and deep. And I only tried this twice, and I pretty much made up my mind about it when I did. This is not a foundation that I'll be using. It is a very loose and liquidy foundation. I can show you one of these. None of these are going to match. Let's just be honest. What I have left, I got the closest match and it didn't. It was very orange on my skin, which is fine. The smallest number of shades they have in any of these families is 6. So they're not going to send you, you know, a match to your skin in a set like this. But I can show you how loose this is at the very least. I mean, seriously, this is like, see, it's like water. It's not a foundation that I'm all that interested in. This is one of the darker shades, which I like that. So it is very loose, but it covers really well. I mean, it was a surprising amount of coverage for how loose this foundation is. It's on the fuller side of medium to lighter end of full and builds to full coverage easily without becoming cakey. I can talk, really. Don't feel it on my face. Do feel it a little to the touch, but it dries down quickly, so it isn't tacky feeling. It's definitely matte so that it looks incredibly dry on my skin. My biggest issue was that it emphasized my texture under my eyes and between my brows. I don't get a lot of under eye texture emphasis with foundations anymore. I do with powders, which is why, like the matte Maybelline Fit Me powder, I never use any of that under my eyes because it will reveal my texture. So it's more of the mattifying stuff that does that under my eyes, but it's usually just powders because I've worn mattifying foundations and not have that issue. It doesn't mix well with my Vichy because it's so loose. It becomes patchy, and I wouldn't recommend it for normal, combo, or dry skin. This is a foundation that I think would definitely work pretty well for oily skin. If you're looking for something to mattify, it's that matte. But if you don't want a mattifying foundation, if you're more into, I'm more into more of a satin or natural finish in my foundations. So if you're into one of those, this would not be it. No. It is definitely very matte. So that is a problem. And like I said, for me, it emphasized a lot of texture. And I'm not going to purchase any foundation that emphasizes a lot of texture, especially if it emphasizes it under my eyes where I don't normally get it anymore. So definitely gives you the coverage. Not good for, probably really good for oily skin. Don't recommend it for anybody else's skin type. And yeah, I'm not going to buy it, but you know, if you have oily skin, it might be something you'd be interested in. So the last one I have for you is the Juvia's Place I Am Magic. I'm going to preface this with saying that soon after I purchased these, we had Chi-Chi go off, basically. The owner of Juvia's Place basically sort of lost her mind on Twitter for a little while. It really turned me off. Whether or not the problems with sending the PR only to white people, whether or not the company is supposed to be based on providing products for darker skin tones, and whether or not other people have had really horrible customer service. And I've heard all of this as being a problem, as problems associated with the company. The best thing for her to have done would have been to just shut up and do better, essentially. Just let it pass. She just kept flaming the flyers, and then she started dragging in personal information and things that had nothing to do with the conflict at hand. And at that point, I kind of lost my taste for Juvia's Place, which is sad. One, I have palettes of theirs that I really love. Their formula is beautiful. The newest palette is very tempting. However, because of the newest palette, I'm a little bit on the fence, I have to admit. That new palette is gorgeous. I have determined that I won't purchase it for myself, but if somebody bought it for me, I wouldn't turn it all down. How's that for squeaking by? Just being honest, folks. I do have the foundation. In fact, I have 2 shades of the foundation, and I do have the concealer. Have to say something that I've seen with the concealer. I've watched women literally slather this stuff underneath their eyes and stuff. I don't know why. For both the foundation and the concealer, a very small amount goes a very long way. Anyway, let's start off with the foundations. I think I originally picked up Casablanca, and it wasn't the right color, so then I picked up Ibiza, and I'm not sure if I remember whether or not that's the right color. I know one of these is too dark. So let's take a look at Casablanca first. I will twist, okay, Casablanca is too dark. So I must have picked up Casablanca first and then Ibiza. Ibiza was the one that I actually wanted. But as you can see, it's a very thick foundation. And there's Casablanca. These swatches are getting bigger as we go. But yes, she's too dark, a little on the too orange side. Here is Ibiza. Ibiza was out for the longest time. And Ibiza is a closer match for me. She's just a tad light. That does oxidize, however. So Ibiza does work. Casablanca would never work for my skin. So I don't know what I'm going to do with the Casablanca, but she ain't going to work for me. This is even too dark for me for when I go out in the sun in the summer. It's way too dark. And I don't even know why. I think when I took their shade matching quiz thing, I think Casablanca is what they gave me. Anyway, a really small amount goes a very long way. Long way. Blends out amazingly well. Nice finish, but not a favorite. It does need setting. It might be powder fussy. In other words, some powders I kind of noticed some issues, that they weren't huge enough for me to go, oh, okay, so there's a problem with this. Don't feel it to the touch, but it takes a bit to dry down in oily areas, even when powdered. So on my nose, it took a while to dry down. And I feel it on my face the entire time. I remember that being the biggest thing about it when I wore it. I think I tested it on a Facebook Live or something, and I put it on. I'm on the Facebook Live for at least another 30 minutes after my foundation is on, and I know that I kept it on for a couple hours after that, and I felt it that whole time on my face. So it's not a foundation that I will try to use up the Ebates, but it's not a foundation I would repurchase regardless, just because I hate feeling shit on my face. I really do. To be fair, I suspect some of this is related to how much you use. A lighter application definitely feels and sets better. Lighter to medium full coverage. It does work with my Vichy. It shears out a bit, not that much, but a little bit. But the finish and the feel remains pretty much the same. It also sets down faster with the Vichy with no sensory issues, so that's also really nice. It worked really well when mixed and I would have mixed it with the e.l.f. or the Dream Satin. It dried down faster. The finish was beautiful. It was like taking the best. Oh, I also apparently mixed it with CoverGirl TruBlend. It was like taking the best of TruBlend and the I Am Magic and making them into one foundation. I like it. I don't think it's a favorite. I probably wouldn't repurchase it. Not when I have other foundations that are cheaper and that make me happier overall. But it's a decent foundation. It's not a horrible foundation. And if you don't have a problem with Chi-Chi's behavior on Twitter over all of that shit, then more power to you. Go for it. But yeah, everybody was raving about this foundation, and they were trying it and they were liking it. Most of them were liking it. So I thought it would be a really, really nice foundation. I thought it would go like amongst my favorites, and it's not there. So it's okay. It's an okay foundation. So I got the concealer in shade 18, which was recommended and does actually work for me to some degree. This is terrible. You can see it kind of matches the Ebates there. Again, as with the foundations, a little bit of this goes a long way, so I do not know why the ladies are like caking it on under their eyes. It's just, you don't need that much. It covers well, all that stuff. It stays put better once set than anything else I've used. My lids when applying my eye primer over it, it doesn't get grainy or streaky as much. So I did try to use this as an eye primer. I do use it with some of my darker foundations, like this one here, to lighten up my under eyes and other spots. I actually really like the concealer. If I wasn't so, what the hell with the owner on Twitter, I wouldn't mind repurchasing it. The good news is I found other concealers that I like about as much that are cheaper. But anyway, the concealer I think came out much better for me than the foundation. And yeah, if it wasn't those issues, I'd probably rebuy this. However, I'm honestly going to try to, I understand that Chi-Chi probably doesn't give a damn, so. But for me, I don't want to support that kind of behavior from a brand. That's what it comes down to. Anyway, that's all of our foundations. My arm looks, I don't know. My arm proves that I can't swatch well when I start getting past this point, I guess. But there you can see all the colors. As you can see, this one's a little dark, but these guys here, the ones that I indicated, are matching me really well. You can see that our first one's still a little tacky. That's the light. So hope you like what you've seen, and I hope that if you're not subscribed that you will subscribe. If you do subscribe, please hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload. I currently upload Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but I do have bonus videos almost every month. Let's go every month. Not almost every month, every month. My son does crate openings. I have indie brand openings, things like that will show up. If you want to know when those are up, you will need to hit that bell. If you're part of my notification squad, you'll want to check both your bell and your subscription to make sure they're both still active. I have noticed that for the most part, my bells have finally stopped knocking off, so you might be safe not checking that bell, but you may want to check it anyway. And if you choose not to subscribe, well, we would understand. And, you know, you'd be disappointed. However, we would really love to see you come back and visit us again. And if you do come back and visit us again, don't forget to bring your cup of tea. All right, going to give this a sip. Hopefully in the last 40 minutes. Yeah, that's how long it's been. This is Strengthen Up. She's actually cooling off a bit. Let's give her a sip and get on our way. The spice level is there. It's kind of flattening out just a little bit. And there's a hint of bitterness towards the end. But the spice is there. So it's much better as a hot tea. As a lukewarm tea, it's okay. It works. I guess I'll probably just keep on mixing it. That's what I prefer to do. Anyway, that's it. Hope you all have a great day.